and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host, Fire Chief Scott Freitag, and with me is my reluctant co-host, Assistant Chief John Feddema.
Yes, thanks for having me back.
Oh, you're welcome.
We do need to clarify a little bit. I watched last week's. It was great to see, Jim in here.
Right.
Very deep voice. That was, definitely has a voice for the radio and the podcast.
Does.
He's more than welcome to come back. I do think we need to clarify the weasel comment that keeps finding its way in there. I am providing opportunity for ratings.
Okay.
You look at the ratings. When I'm gone, the ratings speak for themselves. So I'm providing opportunity for viewership and other folks to come in. So that weasel, I think we need to clarify that.
And interestingly, if you look at it, when I'm gone, the one time I was gone and you and Cody did the podcast, we actually had better viewership. It's something about the team dynamic here.
It's just not working.
But I do not have Jim DeLong's voice. No. I don't have it. So you're going to have to tolerate this. This is what I've got to work with. Yeah. So I did want to point out, I was following you on the way over here from the training academy today, and you're in the new staff Tahoe. Mm-hmm. You and Cody have new staff Tahoes. And is that thing four-wheel drive?
I believe so.
I don't think I've seen a four-wheel drive with that little ground clearance.
Yeah, not going too far with it, no.
No, not at all. That's the 2021 Chevy Tahoe for Chevrolet. If you're out there listening, you didn't do a very good job. So wow. I'm just saying.
Nice.
Yeah.
Way to throw that out there.
It's just my thoughts. You could do better. I've seen better from GM, and that's not it. But that's why they keep losing in the market.
I'm sure this is going to reach them, and
nobody watches this.
We will be making some changes. This is going to be amazing. It'll be good.
I know. It'll reflect on my eval.
Perfect.
I'm good with that. So, John, this week we wanted to talk about a topic that is near and dear to the hearts of our operations personnel right now, and that's our self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBAs, for those not in the fire service who might stumble across this. Let's start by acknowledging the elephant in the room, and that's that the new universal buddy breathing connection that is on the 2018 standard SCBAs are not compatible with the 2013 standard, which means we have Scott manufactured SCBAs, Prescott has Scott manufactured SCBAs, and we can no longer plug those two units into each other, even though they're from the same manufacturer.
I'll just hone that in a little bit. You use more words than I do, but I'll just hone that in. The universal fitting is not universal.
Right, it's not universal. Yet, fortunately, the committee chose Draeger because so many people in the fire service use Draeger products as the universal fitting. Mm-hmm. So we have that, and it's not universal. And we were aware of that.
Sure.
When we were talking to Scott about switching SCBAs, and when we talked to MSA and looked at their SCBAs, we knew this was an issue. We understood there was going to be an adapter. Somewhere along the line, the NFPA Technical Committee voted against that particular adapter, and so there is no adapter available currently.
Yes, and I think that's what the interesting. We are on the other side of all that. And
right.
I think, obviously, this last week, a little bit into last week as well, we obviously educated on a lot of this.
Yes.
We were certainly on the end, and obviously in the transition with Chief Polachek and being able to be a part of a few of those meetings as we looked at the new SCBAs, we had sat in those meetings and asked the question, obviously, knowing that obviously the universal connection is a good concept and a good goal. And so the question was asked early on, is there going to be some kind of adapter? Obviously, the opinion at that time and the information we received back in 2018 when we started looking at this is absolutely there will be an adapter. And that's the feedback. And obviously, there's been a number of challenges trying to get to this point where now we have the SCBAs delivered, they show up, and there's no adapter. And there's no buddy breathing capabilities. And so, obviously, we start asking the questions. And the answers we're getting is, there's no connection. There's no option, nor is there anything manufactured. And then things start to transpire after that, So
things unfold from there, especially when we put them in service. Yep. And our operations folks, we're upfront with everybody that, hey, there's no buddy breathing connection for this. For clarification, we did go straight to Prescott initially.
Sure.
And inform them that, hey, there's no buddy breathing capabilities with these. We need to look at some SOGs and ensure that we're not intermingling crews. We heard that some of their folks didn't get the message, so we followed up a second time and now a third time with them just to ensure everybody's clear about what the concerns are. So SOGs are in process. Prescott's been made aware, and we've made contact with pretty much everybody that deals with SCBAs,
Yes.
trying to figure this thing out. So just some background on that. It was written in the review last week. I know not everybody reads that, shockingly, but there's a lot of words in that too.
That's true.
John,
Those are good ones. I mean, you always good words, but those were very specific
They
and
were.
very targeted to what we're facing right now. So I think if people want more information, go read that if you haven't already read it, because it provides a little bit of depth. And I think it also provides a little understanding of what's being done outside of what people may see in
Sure.
terms of the effort that you did to go directly to the NFPA committee, to go then following up to the technical committee, and then obviously the chiefs down in the valley. There's certainly been a lot done over the last couple of weeks to try to hone this in and look at
Right.
if this is where we're at now, we also have to look at forward. This is what we're going to do in the future.
Sure.
And this is what we're going to try to accomplish, but there's a lot to navigate. And
Yes.
I was amazed sitting in some of those meetings how much politics drove what we thought we were going to get from the beginning to where we got to now.
Oh, yeah.
And it was pretty amazing.
What was interesting to me was to hear and understand that the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, as we think of them, they put standards out. So we say, okay, these are NFPA standards, therefore, they're NFPA. And the NFPA's response was, not us. It's a technical committee that's an NFPA technical committee, but that's not us. And everyone wants to give us the history lesson regarding, and it's always good to know the history. I mean, the history lesson is important. But the bottom line question is, okay, understand the history. I have a problem right now. What are we going to do to address this lack of adapter, the incompatibility between like systems? And it's not just us. If an agency the size of Phoenix, for example, was trying to replace all of their SCBAs, which is, that's 1,300 SCBAs in talking to Phoenix.
Yep.
If they try to do a third at a time, they can't because they're incompatible, and which is what drove Phoenix's decision to say, we're buying 1,300 new SCBAs at one time. I can't even imagine the cost of that. But we talked in the NFPA, and they said, yes, we knew the technical committee was aware this was going to be a problem. And it's not their responsibility to come up with options for you. It's yours and the manufacturers, except that they had voted against the manufacturer's option that was presented. So at that point, we have to go the next step. And what the NFPA rep told us was the IFF representatives on the technical committee had kind of pushed this idea forward, and this is where we were going. And so we said, great. Fortunately, and it really reinforces the idea or the importance of networking. So Stephen Gilman from Goodyear is now the 10th district vice president for the IFF. His chief was one of the chiefs that I got involved in the call with the NFPA. So the next morning, I had Stephen's information on my phone, and it just said, he's expecting your call.
Nice. Yeah.
So I bullet point, I know it's hard for you to think that I would bullet point something, but I bullet pointed some information for Stephen to take the IFF because he said, I will take it directly to our health and safety division director, which he did for us. And within less than 24 hours, we had a meeting scheduled for this week, this past Monday, where we met with the IFF and we met with one of the technical committee members, which was interesting.
Well, I think just not to interrupt you, but go back a little bit to the NFPA committee. It was interesting to see the support that was on there in terms of the folks that got on there. I mean,
Right.
you were obviously directing some, started the process because of the frustration here.
Right.
But you had Phoenix on there. You had the chief of Scottsdale, chief for Mesa, Tucson.
Yep.
You had Mike Duran with Phoenix, assistant chief. You could probably keep naming him.
Right.
But I had to laugh a little bit because here's CAFMA, and you kind of helped start it. And it was kind of at one point looking in the room, it was kind of like looking back, like you had all this behind you. There was a lot of support there.
Yes.
And they
Absolutely.
obviously got on there pretty quick. Once you kind of gave the initial kind of rundown, they got on there as well and said, no, this is an issue.
Yeah.
And we would like some solutions as well. So it turned really quickly from just a CAFMA-centric to an Arizona state
Right.
kind of concern, which was awesome.
Well, and that's again the importance of collaboration.
Yep.
Too often, the fire service runs into a problem within an agency, and then they silo that issue,
Yep.
and nothing gets resolved. And while CAFMA is a decent sized organization, the reality is we don't carry a lot of weight.
Sure.
However, Phoenix Fire Department carries a lot of weight.
Absolutely.
Mesa, Tucson, and that's why I reached out to them. And again, that's why we're involved in so many things at the state level. That's why you're out there. That's why I'm out there, so that we have these connections where we can pick up the phone and say, hey, we have a concern. Is this a concern for you as well?
Yeah.
Turns out it is.
Yeah. Or do they have solutions? Because
Right.
I mean, that's a whole part of it as well. And there were some discussions on some solutions that obviously have to look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the IFF meeting went well. They understand where we are. So the representative of the IFF is calling Scott Health and Safety, their corporate, to have a conversation with them about what are we going to do to bridge this gap? What are some of the other options that exist? Because when we talked to the NFPA rep himself, it sounded like that all adapters were off the table. He never said that. It's just kind of the way the conversation went. In talking with the folks Monday morning, it sounds like adapters may be an option. It depends on the type of adapter. And what they would do is produce something. It has to go through NIOSH, and it would be an accessory as opposed to part of the pack.
Yep. And I think going back a little bit for all folks, I wish our personnel understand this, but for anybody outside the organization, this comes down to our ability to interact with the city of Prescott.
Yes, it does.
On a crew level, to where if we have multiple crews going into a structure fire, a dangerous situation in terms of the environment,
Right.
This limits their ability to support one another in a last-ditch effort.
Right.
We have some other areas. Our RIC bags are universal. They support on both sides. That's good.
Right.
This is one aspect of the job that we want to try to hone in. It's not preventing us from doing our job, but this is a concern for the safety of the firefighters that we want to try to solve.
Right.
So that when we are interacting with the Prescott Fire Department, we are doing so equal partners. So
Right.
if crews interchange, that we have that ability. And that was a lot of the discussions early
Right.
on with some of with our battalion chiefs and also some of their senior leadership was, let's talk about what's going to happen to some of our procedures if we have to make an adjustment to that,
Right.
which is really at this point interchanging crews.
Right.
Which, because we work so well together, we have joint operations, joint training. It's a great testament to our partnership. This, unfortunately, has kind of put a little halt in that ability to support one another.
So taking just another step back real quick. So for those elected officials, community leaders, anybody that watches this that is not or listens to it who's not in the fire service, a buddy breathing connection allows you have two firefighters in a building, one runs out of air. That firefighter can connect to the other firefighter's tank, and they can share that air to get out of the building. Yeah. And an example of that happened recently in the Valley because it's still under investigation. I don't want to go into any specifics, but two agencies working together, a big box fire, so a two-story big box, some sort of commercial occupancy. One firefighter runs out of air, calls a mayday on the second floor. Another firefighter uses the buddy breathing connection. They get connected. They walk out of the building together, save that firefighter's life.
Yeah.
So not having access to that can be a significant challenge because without it, You're trying to drag that firefighter out while his mask is sucking to his face, while the RIC team, the Rapid Intervention Team, is bringing another bag in that has a tank and an adapter that is actually universal,
Sure.
so that you can provide air to that firefighter.
Yeah.
So just for those who don't know what that is, that's what it is, and that's why it's important.
Yeah, I think it's a good clarification for outside the organization. Our folks
Right.
obviously intimately involved in this whole situation. A lot of frustrations, I think, out there, and I think it's just good for folks to understand the other work that is being done to try to find solutions,
Right.
and not just saying, "Hey, we don't have anything." And that's what we've been getting from the manufacturer at this point, the distributor at this point. Like, no, there's really no solutions.
Right.
So I'll give you credit for picking a fight to try to find solutions, and that started with the NFPA, and then we're going to keep on following that out until we hopefully find a solution by the end of it.
It's one of my not so hidden talents. Picking a fight.
You're good at it. Yeah.
So when we look at this situation, where we are today, so we talked to the NFPA, we talked to the IFF, we know there's potential for adapters. One of the questions we have is, can you retrofit a 2013 pack with the new standard buddy breather? Or can you just change the adapter on the end of that?
Seems simple enough. Yes.
It really does. However, we're not engineers, and we don't know what that does to the certification for the pack, because it's certified NFPA 2013. The gentleman who was on the technical committee said they can change that one adapter without causing any issues with its current certification. Well, if that's the case, that would be very easy.
Yeah.
But trying to get clarification on that has been a challenge. So we followed the IFF meeting up with, and we left that with the IFF is reaching out to Scott. Mm-hmm. We have a better idea what we may be able to do. And then the next morning we met with Chuck Ryan, Fire Chief of Tucson, who went through this in Fairfax County. They have what's called an air shop. So they have people who are specific. That's their job. They deal with those things. And then back around 2013, they had a similar issue. They couldn't get anything developed from Scott as an adapter between the units. Their air shop invented something. It didn't go on the pack, though, to clarify. It went in the RIP bag. And then eventually that product was in demand. And so 3M said, or Scott Health and Safety said, we'll create that. And let's be clear on this, too. This is not a Scott Health and Safety issue.
Sure.
The NFPA Technical Committee changed the standard. They dictated that this fitting would be the fitting. So it doesn't matter what manufacturer we work with at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of them has the exact same adapter, which is a good way to go.
Yes.
The concern is, and this is what we got from the gentleman on the technical committee, they knew this was a problem, but they figured it would be corrected by 2032 to 2035.
Yes. They had a lot of, they were projecting out, which was,
Yeah, it's projected.
Yeah.
What year is this? 2021?
We could say 21, because we couldn't say 2020. So 21 we could say, yes.
So 32 or 35, that's a long ways away.
A little ways out there, which we were exactly in that same position. Because you look at the Prescott Fire Department, you look at, okay, they're going to need to replace their packs before we ever do, but they're only 5-6 years into those packs.
Right.
They have those packs have a long shelf life still.
Right.
And we are certainly not going to see them corrected until then.
Right. So in the meeting with Chief Ryan, we also had representatives from Phoenix and Mesa Fire. And one of the representatives of Phoenix said, hey, I just Googled this adapter that goes on the universal connection for transfill. And my response was great.
No, when he said that, it's like, man, that's not a bad thing. I mean, even if you only had that on like our station that works in the city of Prescott, where again it's just a transfill to transfill,
right?
Like, maybe that's a solution.
And until Mesa rained on our parade, which we appreciate, because they pointed out that while the tank in the RIT bag has a valve that allows it to feed another tank, our Scott SCBAs are one-way valves at that universal fitting.
They will receive, they won't give.
Right.
So you could connect both packs together, no air would travel through that line.
No, they wouldn't go anywhere. So while that seemed like a good option and we were ready to Google it and order from Amazon, That was quickly shot down, so not an option. Yep. So we finished that meeting really with an understanding that we don't have an air shop. That fitting won't work. We still need something.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So next week, Tuesday, Scott Health and Safety has sent an engineer to Arizona with their reps as well as our vendor. They are coming up to meet us on site. Prescott Fire is coming over to take part in the meeting, bringing one of their SCBAs. Yep. We're going to have one of ours. We're going to have the two packs together, and we're going to discuss what are the options.
Yeah. No, that's huge. Like I say, it's taken a lot of work to get some of that stuff, but the nice thing is there's still movement. There's,
right.
We're still have the chance of getting a solution. And again, hopefully folks understand that there's been a lot of done on the back end to try to find solutions to this.
Yes.
And it's still a long road ahead because of all the other politics that go along. Even if Scott Health and Safety creates this, there's still some work to be done.
Right.
But the fact that they're here, I think, is a testament to the collaboration, getting some of
right.
those bigger organizations on board as well, getting them on just the meetings themselves.
Sure.
And that's encouraged some movement. And that's all we're asking for, a little bit of movement. Look into this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to move anything, but when you get the big players in the room and you get the entire state of Arizona together, good things can happen. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday. Don't expect an AD. There's nothing for me to send out an administrative directive on. Yep. We put the information. We Chief Feddema helped me last week. We made sure that everything that we've done and where we were to that point was included in the review. Sure. We are going to add some additional in the review this week and expect that next week there will be additional in the review again, trying to keep people informed on what's going on.
Just up to date. Yeah.
Right.
And like I say, there's been discussions with the battalion chiefs trying to look at what we do with this. That's been going on for quite a while. Information has been sent out. I know that we ended it with kind of a go, no go with all the battalion chiefs talking to the crews and giving me kind of that final feedback like, no one is happy with it where we're at, but everybody understands, and so we're a go. And that was received by all the battalions before we even made the decision to take the next step and put them on the trucks. So there's definitely been that communication loop there that we've been trying to inform people. Now it's just kind of informing people as we move and try to find solutions, keeping those that care to stay in the loop.
Right. So we're not done. We're still pressing forward. Look for the information in the review. It's on the podcast. We can send you emails, but when I send you an email and you don't read it, you say you get too many emails. I send you the review, you get the review, there's too many words. Start reading what we send out or listen to this, and you've been talked to directly by the battalion chiefs. Yep. You've had the dialogue. If you have more questions, go back through the battalion chief to get additional information, but we continue to move forward. There's one issue that I'm going to address. We're going to be careful how we approach it, but there was a concern on Tuesday this week.
Yes, there was. With
a screw that was seemingly loose in the new SCBAs. And unfortunately, it didn't go the way that we would hope. A lot of SCBAs started coming out of service. Phone calls were made to different crews. From the standpoint of the battalion chiefs calling all the crews and making notifications and giving directions, spot on.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yep.
The issue that we had was the old tanks, that particular screw had to be Loctited in and set to a certain torque spec. The new tanks, that's a set screw. And you don't want to mess with the set screw because it's set from the factory. And the looseness of that screw was mistaken as, hey, there's no Loctite on this. This is a significant safety issue. So our personnel immediately started working to get those out of service and ensure the safety of our folks. Yep. And then I talked to you. I ended up calling our vendor, MES. MES got involved, started talking with some different folks, finally talked to Chief Rose. Turns out that it's a set screw, don't mess with it. Well, it was too late for that.
For sure. And I think I talked to Chief Rose prior to this as well. And, there was definitely a concern for it. And I think everybody responded very well to the challenge of it.
Right.
I mean, when I got a call from Chief Crothers saying that, hey, we're being told our SCBA is out of service, I thought it was a joke. It turned out it wasn't, and but the crews navigated it very well, very quickly.
Right.
All the folks working on the packs themselves did a great job making the exchanges from from our maintenance, and obviously some of it there was some education to go along with that.
Sure.
On what that concern was. They're actually sending up a tech tomorrow to help just kind of clean some of this stuff up and make sure that everybody is kind of comfortable with the pack themselves moving forward. So obviously we want folks to have a confidence in their SCBAs. So they're going to be going around again and kind of confirming, fixing the ones that they thought were, obviously a concern, and then going around all the other ones as well and kind of honing that in.
Right. So it's kind of a training issue on the maintenance side. This time, they did everything they thought they needed to do to keep our folks safe. So we don't want to put that on them. It does beg the question, and we're not going to get into deep conversation about this. As I mentioned, we don't have an air shop. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough work on SCBAs for a tech to keep them busy full time. That said, the question that I'm asking now, and I've talked to you about this today, I'm going to talk to Chief Rose about it. Are we spreading our folks too thin, expecting them to be experts in too many areas? Sure. And that is going to create problems as we get busier.
Absolutely.
So maybe not an SCBA tech, but do we need to look at a position that is, we're going to move SCBA's thermal imaging cameras and small engines, and this person's going to be our expert in that area, and this person's going to be their backup, and it's going to be housed within this division or section within the division.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it earlier. We are a growing organization, and I think this is part of those pains of growing on when we make some of the decisions. Sure. When do we kind of shed some of the load and start spreading that out? Everybody can look back in a certain time of history, even when our more operational personnel were responsible for more committees, and we have slowly worked a lot of that stuff away, and now there's decisions. Okay, do we need to add positions to help with that workload? Right. We are a growing organization. The community is a growing community, which is awesome. But for us, managing that, there are definitely going to have to be decision making that says, hey, we need to add some of those positions. So it'll just come with time.
So just some things, and we're talking about this because we know there's going to be questions about it. Yeah. We might as well just get it out there, talk about it now. Sure. And that's not the only place we're looking at that. We know that Tony and Dave in tech services are going to retire someday, whether we like it or not. Yep. And I had occasion this morning to speak with Adam Wagner, Engineer Wagner, who is fresh out of the military. Well, I think he's still kind of in the military, but not active right now. And I asked him, I said, hey, you know any comms guys coming out of the military or comms people, men or women? Yeah. And he said, I absolutely do. I said, excellent. Send them our way. Have them go talk to Jonah. And when do we need to start hiring somebody in to shadow Dave and Tony? Because finding someone that can engineer, design, build radio systems is difficult. And so these are things we're trying to balance. How many can we hire and when can we hire them? Oh, yeah.
No, it's always a balance. Right. Go figure it out. I mean, even from the operational side for the firefighters on the floor, always a balance trying to figure out the hiring process and how much is enough. And that'll always be ongoing. Right. So.
And establishing those priorities. Yeah. Do we need this position first or do we need this position first? And that is a conversation that senior staff has. Mm-hmm. It's a dialogue that we have behind closed doors, and then we come out and we're all smiling. Yes. And you don't know what happened. Yes. What we might have done. So, John, thank you very much. I think we have some good information on here for our folks if they listen or they watch or they go back and read the review. That's where we are as of today. Next week is going to change things a little bit, hopefully. At least we'll have a direction. So until next week, stay tuned. Practice with your RIP bags. Talk to your Prescott partners. We stay in contact with them, and we're looking at the SOGs. So be safe and continue to work over your equipment.